The Civil War is one of the bloodiest conflicts in American history, and it began in South Carolina. The impact and after effects of that war still affect that part of the country even today. But are all the dead finally at peace from that area? What did the Civil War actually leave behind? Stay with us today as we get some insight from researcher and author Tally Johnson.
Welcome to High Strangeness, where we ask questions and explore all that is strange and unexpected in our reality.
Welcome to High Strangeness. I'm Tony, and happy almost Halloween to all of you out there. This is a time of the year when strange and unexpected is almost expected. Ghosts are almost always tied to something in history. Today we're going to briefly dive into the Civil War area and see what residue remains and is left behind from that era. So what I am excited to do today is to actually have a researcher and an author on the line with us and in this episode, and his name is Tally Johnson. He's very familiar with the Civil War and its impact to South Carolina with his book, Civil War Ghosts of South Carolina. So with that, I want to welcome to the show, Tally. Thanks for being here with us. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on. Been listening for a while. Good.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward. This is a really cool topic that kind of hits the click on several things, right? You know, you've got history and then you've got some of this paranormal stuff that's tied into it, and it's just pretty interesting all around when it comes to that. So let me ask you this. You are in South Carolina. Is that where you are right now?
Yes, sir. Born and bred. Yeah. I'm a native.
Awesome. Oh, so you're a native. That's what I was going to ask. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You love that area? Is it is it somewhere you love, or?
I do. Like I say, I live an hour from where I was born. I mean, it's awesome. However, I do hate May to September because it's hot and it's humid and I don't like it.
Yeah.
But everything
you.
else I'm a fan of. I mean, it's beautiful history, both Civil War and Revolutionary. We're eating up with it. So it's a sweet spot to be in, I have to say.
Yeah. I know that darn humidity just messes everything up, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, Tally, let me ask you, have you always been a history lover, even as a young person, or is this something that kind of it grew into you a little bit?
It's kind of funny. I've been a history nerd longer than you've been alive, and I've been a ghost nerd almost that long.
Seriously? Wow.
When I was a kid, I got into history, and my dad had a bunch of Civil War books because basically he brought his library when he was a kid, and he had all this stuff from the centennial of the Civil War back in the early 60s. And I devoured all of it. I mean, north, south, didn't matter. And one thing my folks liked to do when I was younger, we would go on road trips to Fort Sumter, Pulaski, the State House in Columbia, and all this stuff. So, I mean, I would read about a place, and then we'd wind up being able to go.
Yeah.
And then when I got more into ghost stuff, I started realizing that, wait a minute, I've been to that place, and oh yeah, there's a ghost there. So now I'll feed off each other.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, it's interesting. History is a really cool thing. I grew up just outside of Philadelphia, and as a young person, didn't appreciate the history that's right there. Right, I didn't until I got older, and then as I got older, I couldn't believe that I was oblivious to such wonderful stuff in that area. And then I had already moved away at that point. And so I would come back on vacations and do things that I probably should have done as a young person there. So that's really cool.
Well, that's one thing I've noticed over the years too, folks because my sister now lives up near DC, and that my joke is, yeah, you live where the history is. You don't have to come see it. You live where the history comes from. Well, you did too. You lived in Philly, which Independence Hall, Ben Franklin, I mean, all that stuff. So yeah, you didn't need to go on a history tour because you were blocked from it. I mean, you didn't have to worry about it. So, but I've noticed a lot of folks who are like that when they move somewhere, and then it's like you said, the switch gets flipped, and they're like, "Yeah, I need to go back and check on all that stuff." So
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, Tally, you kind of went into it a little bit, but one of the things I like to share with the audience is when we bring in a subject matter expert or an author, is their path to get to the point where they produced whatever we're talking about. So this book today and its history and the interesting pieces around it. I'm curious about your path in life that got you, to the point where you wrote the book. I know you're a history buff. You've mentioned that, but there was a path, and then you decided to write the book. How did that come about?
well, like I say, I've always been a history nerd, and South Carolina's pivotal role in the war kind of fed that, and the fact that, little off topic, South Carolina had more Revolutionary battles and skirmishes than any other state or colony at the time. I mean, we were where, I mean, it was brother against brother for real in the Revolution down here.
Mm,
So we're eat up
wow.
with it. And like I say, I was just constant exposure. And with the ghost side, a lady named Nancy Roberts came to my school when I was in fifth grade and did a talk about ghosts of the Carolinas.
Hmm.
And she was talking about Columbia and Newberry and Charleston. And I'm following along. I know where that is. I've been to Fort Sumter. Oh crap! I know where I know where she's talking about on the State House grounds. And it just fed as I got older. I met like-minded folks. We would go. I hate this term, but I have to use it because it's easy. We would go ghost hunting. Random Sunday nights, Saturday nights in high school. We'd all pile in the car to go see what we could find. And so I had the two loves going on the same track. When I got married, my wife taught school and needed someone to entertain her kids so she could get set up for a Halloween party.
Hmm.
And, they hang teachers up in the closet at 3 o'clock when the bell rings, and they're rolling back out at 8 o'clock when the bell rings. Yeah, they don't go home, don't have people. And, well, since I was her person, they were already. But when she said, tell them a ghost story or two, the kids loved it. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
this isn't. I kept buying ghost books, and she will tell you I have like 3,000 ghost books in my house, literally, from different, not just South
Nice.
Carolina, but all over. And I kept raising hell because the same stories are in them. The Gray Man, Alice, and I'm like, there are ghosts that aren't about, like Chester, where I live now, has one. Lyman, where I was born, has one. And she's like, well, write them down.
Yeah.
Like, nobody wants to read what a Mill Hill kid has to say about ghosts and history. Well, this is my fourth book about this stuff, so apparently somebody likes it. So,
Yeah.
and
No, I
and,
think
and
it's a
as they
great
say,
topic.
there my troubles began. So,
Yeah. That's wonderful. I like that. I like that part of the story so that people, there's people out there that are thinking, hey, I might want to do this for whatever their area is that they're interested in. And it's good to hear other people when they decide, hey, why not? Let me just do this. So appreciate you sharing that.
yeah, I mean, the best way to do it is just write it down. And I mean, it's easier now than when I started 20 years ago to get published. You can self-publish and all that, but just sit down, make the time, put pen to paper, finger to keyboard, and you never know. I mean, if one person buys it, it counts. You're a published author. So hey,
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So everybody out there listening, as we talk today, if you would like to dive deeper into our subject today, remember to check out Tally's book, Civil War Ghosts of South Carolina. And there'll be, we'll share towards the end of the interview how you can get that. So, Tally, let's start here. Can you give us a brief overview of the Civil War as experienced in South Carolina? You mentioned brother against brother. Can you help paint that picture for us so we can appreciate what it must have been like there during this war?
well, like I said when we were chatting before, the war started in South Carolina, but it didn't start with Fort Sumter. I mean, South Carolina had been pushing to secede from the Union for 30 years before Lincoln got elected. We were hell bent to keep our own way of doing things as far as trade and whatever else we could think of. And we kept bullying the rest of the states into doing what we wanted until we couldn't. And when Lincoln was elected, Governor Gist, who's from a neighboring county to me, for the secession convention to start in Columbia in, I want to say, December of 1860. So you had a fever outbreak, then moved to Charleston. They ratified it in February and requested that President Buchanan and then President Lincoln evacuate that big fort in the middle of the Fort Sumter. And Lincoln said no. Little cadets and some rowdy rough boys decided that, yeah, we'll fire 4,000 cannonballs at it in the course of 3 hours and not hit anything living inside the fort, which is about the size of a post office, of a mailbox.
Yeah.
And then we send off firstborn sons, Mexican War veterans, everything our best and brightest. We send them off to the slaughterhouses in Virginia and Tennessee and all that. And about 1863, we realized, oh, wait a minute, we have left about 1 million slaves who aren't happy to be slaves and haven't been happy to be slaves since 1619 in the care of people with like one arms who are in their 80s and a bunch of women. Not the best plan in the history of plans, given this is why you fought the war in the first place.
Yeah.
And of course, the blockade has cut off coffee and sugar, and you can't sell cotton to the British to make any money. And Confederate money is absolutely worthless. I mean, I think the exchange rate at one point was 2 billion Confederate dollars for one American dollar.
Mm.
I mean, it was just crazy. And I mean, you couldn't do any good with it. And like I say, the North had steady immigration. The North had big factories. The South had like 3 iron works in the entire Confederacy and a stable population. As you lose thousands of men a week in battle, the North can replace them, the South can't, especially South Carolina. And by 1865, Sherman comes through, freaks everybody out about where he's going, burns Columbia, shoots a swath about 50 miles wide from Savannah to Charlotte. And then the war winds up ending in April 65 when Lee surrendered. And then Johnston surrenders in Bentonville, North Carolina. A little bit later, I want to say late April, 1st of May. And then by the end of June, all the Confederate armies have surrendered.
Mm.
But it's a real hardship for civilians and just blood and gore for the troops. I mean, it was, and it was like in South Carolina, it wasn't brother against brother. That was more the revolution, but it was true believers. I mean, it really and truly was that first wave that went north. We were doing it for Southern womanhood. We were doing it, one Confederate can whoop Yankees' butts and all this stuff. And by the end of the war, we were just beaten. I mean, just whooped.
Yeah.
I mean, we picked the fight, so we deserved it. But
Yeah. So essentially, they were a key spark for this war down in South Carolina.
oh yeah,
And
yeah,
it was just tragic. I mean, it was just taxing on everybody there, the community, like everything is what it sounds like. In your opinion, is the geography and the economy of the time, did it impact the strategy around the war? In your opinion?
it helped South Carolina that we weren't on the front lines. We didn't border the Mississippi or the Ohio. The blockade hurt South Carolina because, like I say, our major source of revenue was the sale of cotton. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
William Henry Hammond, who was governor and senator from South Carolina, declared in Congress, cotton is king, and you dare not make war on cotton. Well, the North did. So, like I say, we have no money as a state. We can't buy arms for our troops. We can't buy uniforms. Civilians are basically reduced to barter. It's like, I'll give you a pound of okra for a dozen eggs. And then when Sherman comes through after the Savannah falls in December of 1864, because we didn't know he was going to get revenge on Charleston. Is he going to and burn the seat of government? Or, I mean, everything pretty much stopped. And of course, everybody in Charleston ran to Columbia, and Sherman came to Columbia, and either he or Wade Hampton won, burnt the place pretty much down. And then Sherman went on up the Catawba River into North Carolina and was like, yeah, And meanwhile, I mean,
Yeah.
the devastation. I mean, empty barns, smokehouses, empty. I mean, any usable livestock gone. I mean, there were literally stories that crows could fly across South Carolina and have to pack their lunch because there was nothing to eat.
Mm.
State. And it's not a big state. I mean, we're talking 200 by 200, so
Yeah.
miles wise.
Right.
So
Interesting. So, what do you think, or why do you think? This is going to be a silly question, but clearly there's so much tragedy, bloodshed, and turmoil that happened there through this war. But why do you think South Carolina, with that deep history, has become such a hotspot for these ghost stories and things like that?
one thing is until the 1960s, if you were born in South Carolina, you lived in South Carolina and you died in South Carolina.
Mm.
On the 18 county South Carolina had the highest percentage of people born in states who had parents and grandparents born in the same state. It's like 99.8% of the population of Marlborough County. They were born there, their parents and their grandparents all were born there.
Mm.
That's a lot of ties, blood to land. And I mean, that's one of those things where we went to high school together, our brothers, our moms and dads, and everything. And those are a lot of stories to get swapped back and forth.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so you've got that lasting tie to the land. And let's face it, until World War One, we didn't have a whole lot to store about South Carolina. I mean, the reason Charleston is as beautiful as it is, we couldn't afford to tear the buildings down to build new ones.
Mm.
So that's why you go to all the churches are original. They still got cobblestone streets, but because when it burnt down, we couldn't afford to rebuild it.
Mm.
So,
I see.
so you have that. So you have this tie, and you can either go back and you have a Confederate general in your family or a Revolutionary general in your family, and everybody had a plantation.
Mm.
Now you could have one slave and own 1 acre of land, but when your grandparents told you this story, you had Tara, you had 1,000 slaves, and everybody was a general. Everybody was, debutante ball, bail, all that stuff. So the stories are what we kept out of everything else because we had really nothing left but the land. And I mean, and there's been so much bloodshed in South Carolina through the centuries that I think every square foot of the state should have a ghost. It doesn't, but it probably should.
Right. Right. Jeez. Yeah, that makes sense when you describe it like that. It does. The roots run deep, and yeah, those stories pass from generation to generation.
And one thing I will say too about ghosts in general, ghost stories are the National Enquirer version of history
Mm-hmm.
because it keeps
Explain that. Yeah,
well,
explain that.
it keeps the people who are local heroes/villains alive. Because I mean, there's a story from Camden about the Angel of Mars Heights, Richard Kirkland, the battlefield, and heard cries from dying and wounded Union and Confederate troops. Filled his canteen on the troops and limped around giving people water as they were dying. And they built him a fountain in Camden.
Hmm.
And now, supposedly, when the weather's right, when the lighting's right, whatever, a little blue gray light floats above the fountain on the anniversary of his birth and death. The odds are really good no one would remember who Richard Kirkland was if that story hadn't latched on.
Right.
And I mean, Mars Height was fought in Maryland, if I remember right. And it's just, but like I say, no one would remember. I mean, he would be dead Confederate and on leave in Maryland somewhere if not for that story. And you see that over and over, especially in South Carolina and the South, where those stories about the people like Pee Wee Gaskins, the serial killer from South Carolina, all these people, they have ghost stories tied.
Hmm.
And you may forget about the particulars of what Pee Wee Gaskins did, but down the end of the road a ways past that dead tree, that girl he killed shows up. So, I mean, that's
Gotcha.
one way to look at it too. Ghosts are that National Enquirer version of history that It's not going to be talked about in an academic setting, but it's a way for us to remember stuff.
Right, right. It's interesting. Is there any interesting, specific tale stories from any specific battlefield?
We didn't have a lot of actual battles. It's most of it was hit and run stuff by the Confederates.
Hmm.
We had Fort Sumter, of course, and like I said, the comical thing about Fort Sumter is they bombarded from the battery in Charleston for, if memory serves, about 6 hours on April 12th, and literally 4 to 5 cannonballs were fired at the fort with a company of about 150 men in a maybe 500 square foot fort. No one got hurt. The only person that died in the battle died during the salute to the flag that they ordered at the surrender. So, I mean, you have all these
Interesting.
cannonballs just being flung, nothing. 2 hours after
Wow.
everything's done with, cannon blows up. But as far as the battlefield goes, Rivers Bridge State Park is probably my, well, state historic site now is probably my favorite because it was a complete accident.
Yeah.
Like I say, after Sherman got Savannah at the end of 64, no one knew where he was going next. And finally, Sherman moved out and he crossed the Savannah River about 15 miles from Bamberg, South Carolina, a small county seat town. And it's mid January. There's been a huge flood, blizzard conditions. And remember, Sherman had like a 60,000 man army. The Confederate
Right.
Home Guard throughout the entire state of South Carolina had about 4,000 guys. And we're talking like kids under
Yeah.
16, guys over 70, and the guys who are missing arms and legs. This is not going to be
Yeah.
a fair fight.
Yeah.
But one of the Confederate generals gathers up about 1,000 guys and blocks one of the nearby fords over the Savannah, Saltcatcher Creek. Rivers Bridge was the bridge, and of course, the Confederates tore the bridge down so the Union couldn't use it. And Sherman comes up, and they have like 3 literal Revolutionary era cannons on the riverbank. They fire them off, kill 3 or 4 American Union troops, fire a volley, and kill another couple of guys, hurt a few more. And then the northernmost 40,000 men with Sherman say, wait a minute, we can wade across right here. We don't have to worry about the bridge. And then everybody on the Confederate side says, oh, hell, and run. I'm working on a book called Ghosts to South Carolina Midlands. And I decided one day I'm going to visit literally 18 sites in a day. I was much younger, I was much stupider, and I was much more flexible than I am now. And I did it. I mean, it was, but all it was I am going to verify Building X on Street Y in Town Z is still there, open to the public, or at least accessible. And if somebody is there and says, "Oh yeah, I saw that," it counts.
Yeah.
So I'm bopping off visits, and I get down to Rivers Bridge, and I'm done. It's high August. I've been in the car for about 9 hours. I'm exhausted, hungry, and I'm like, I'm gonna walk around for a minute. So I go to the state park, and they have a nature trail. It's basically a giant U, and you walk by the Confederate entrenchments, and they're really good historic markers that explain. And I come down a little trail about 250 yards from the car, and it's Blackwater Swamp. Where are y'all out? Where are you out of?
I'm in Utah.
In Utah. Okay. Blackwater
Yeah.
Swamp is basically leaves and pine needles and dirt and whatever has fallen into the water. And it is
Mm.
literally as black as your shirt. I mean, it's one of those things you stick your
Oh,
hand in.
wow.
By the time you get past wrist, fingertips are invisible. It's black
Interesting.
water. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's one of those things you can't see the bottom, and yeah, there are snakes and alligators and biting critters and
Mm.
everything else in there. And I'm standing there sweating like a pig, but I can feel my feet, so it's a win. And there's a guy, long blonde hair, handlebar mustache, wearing a wool waist deep in this water,
Mm.
carrying what looks to be a single shot rifle. And I'm like, dude, and I'm about to holler, hey, get out of the water. Because you can't be in the water in the state park. You can't hunt in the state park. It's August in South Carolina and you're wearing wool. You're going to die of a heat stroke before anything bites you, okay?
Right.
As I say that, my mouth opens, throws his arms out, falls backwards into the water. There is no splash. There is no thump. And I turn around and I walk back to my car and I got in my car and did my last 3 site visits and I said, hell with it, I went home. Because I don't mind ghosts when I'm looking for them. If I had been there and said, okay, on this day at this time, something's supposed to happen. That's what.
Yeah.
But for a random Saturday in August when everything that happened at the site was in January, oh, hell no, I ain't playing that. No, I'm out of here. That's how stuff follows you home. We're not
Yeah.
doing that. I mean,
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
crazy.
I don't just write the scary books. I've seen the scary movies. I'm like, no, we're not doing this.
Right.
But
Holy
and to
cow.
finish it off, I camp at a lot of state parks. Me and a buddy of mine, we hammock camp and hike. And I've met a couple of the rangers who worked at Rivers Bridge State Park, and they have confessed that, yeah, there's all kind of weird stuff going on in that swamp and in those woods. So
Hmm.
we don't just believe you; we can testify. Yeah.
Right.
Now,
Right.
however, if you just like at Fort Sumter, if you ask, there are no haunted places or sites anywhere in the state park system of South Carolina or in the national park. And if you believe that, I
Right.
have swamp.
That's right. That's right. It
But that
seems
is the
like,
official because I've gotten it more
right.
than once.
Yeah, I'm not surprised about that. You hear that in some other states as well, where they're like, nothing bad ever happens here. And that's really not the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. That body of water sounds freaky enough right there. Ugh. Hey, everybody. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe and hit the like button. It really does help a young channel like this grow and improve. Thanks, and back to the show. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, Tally. Your book, I mean, there's a lot of sections in it. Is it right if I pick a number of a few
Yeah.
of them there that
Yeah,
we could just
absolutely.
share what might be in those chapters? So, like,
I will do
for
my best
instance,
to. I will do my best to remember.
yeah, exactly. Springwood Cemetery, Greenville City of the Dead. What's that about?
That is the big municipal cemetery in Greenville, South Carolina. That is up in the upstate area of the state. If you come through here, Greenville's right off I-85.
Mhm.
To give you a rough idea, supposedly at the Confederate monument, and again, this is South Carolina. We still have them. We haven't torn them all down yet. It's a thing. But near that monument to the Confederate dead, you will hear voices. People have reported being touched. Some people have been shoved, depending on how you express your
Mm,
feelings about the Confederacy. But the murmur of voices, like you walked into a cocktail party and everybody stops and looks at you. That
yeah.
split second right when you walk in, it's that kind of thing. There have been reports of figures seen near the fence because it's a wrought iron fence around like 3 city blocks. But people have been seen in period dress walking along the fence line, and they'll pass by a tree and not emerge from the other side.
Whoa.
And I
That's
mean,
crazy.
Greenville's a good sized city. I mean, it's in the ballpark of Salt Lake. I mean, it's not maybe not as
Yeah.
big, but it's in that neighborhood to give you an scale.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, it's not the kind of place you would expect to find, antebellum belle wandering around in a hoops and
Mm-hmm. Right.
petticoats. So yeah, it's a little freaky. And I mentioned in the book that me and my brother-in-law went, and it did have that atmosphere. Like I walked into a party that I hadn't had an invitation for. I mean, you could kind of tell everybody was kind of looking around like, you need to leave so we can keep talking about you. That was very much that
Yeah.
vibe, and
Wow.
we both remarked on it like, yeah, they don't want us up in here.
Interesting.
And we never heard anything, never saw anything, and I've had people tell me that they have, but it was very much one of those vibes like, nah, this ain't for you.
Yeah, it's like from the living. You got the vibe from the living. Like,
Yeah.
go, get out of here. Yeah. Jeez. How about Sleepy Hollow Lane? That sounds interesting in its own.
Sleepy Hollow, I believe, is the one near Lockhart, South Carolina. It's down near here where I live now. It is a little piece of one-lane blacktop road. There are a couple of small houses off of it, and about halfway down, a one-armed Confederate veteran is prone to walk out in front of moving cars.
Whoa.
Now, the road's not one you're going to go 95 down. I mean, it's curvy, and I mean, there are no shoulders. I mean, it's literally a one-lane stretch of blacktop. But
Mhm.
I mean, you can imagine that it's made when this figure in gray steps out in front of your car. And you're clicking along 35 miles an hour, and all of a sudden, there he is, 5 feet in front of you.
Yeah, that's
And
great.
of course, you can tell he's not among the living because he's waving the of his right hand at you. So,
Holy cow.
and I did some research, and in that area of Union County, there was a gentleman who owned land in the Sleepy Hollow area who did lose an arm to the at the Battle of Petersburg in Virginia. They amputated the arm. He still bled out, and they buried him on the family plot, but they didn't mark the grave. So the speculation that the road was cut through the old family cemetery, and that's why he's
Yeah, jeez. That would be freaky to see, no doubt about
yeah.
that. How about Hampton Preston House? What's the story with that?
Redeemer governor of South Carolina. He's the one who, in air quotes, saved us from black rule after Reconstruction. Before the war started, he was the richest man in the South by all accounts. He owned like 25,000 acres of prime cotton land in South Carolina and Mississippi. At the
Whoa,
end of the war, he
that's,
was broke.
yeah.
And one of his daughters married to Preston, who was a congressman from South Carolina before the war and all that. But Hampton's daughter wanders around the house. He's very keen to make sure it doesn't burn down. She'll put out the candles if any are lit after an event. She has been both heard and seen on the staircase in the main hall and that kind of stuff. So I mean, it's very much a classic haunted house story.
Yeah.
Nothing necessarily devious or evil. It's just kind of like a residual thing where she's there, she's making sure her house is okay, and if you decide to come in and make a bunch of changes, she'll probably not be happy with you.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, is there a family living there, or who's
No, it is
occupying
a
that house?
historic house museum now. It is owned
Gotcha.
by the Historic Columbia Foundation, and they do a really good tour of the site, explain the history, both from the Hampton people side. Really well done, and there are several under that umbrella. They were
Yeah,
really
that's neat.
cool setup.
Yeah. Hey there, viewers. Do you have any ghost experiences or stories related to a historical or haunted location? If so, please share that and leave a comment. Thanks, and back to the show. A few more here, if we can. You have one of the sections of your book, General Samuel Macallan, the Fifth Ave Ghost.
Yeah, Samuel McGowan kind of got a bad rap, and it's Hans Holzer's fault. You know who Hans Holzer was, right? He
No.
was he was one of the premier ghost hunters of the late '60s, early '70s.
Okay.
He did the right around the time Leonard Nimoy was doing In Search of. Hans Holzer was the big deal. He was kind of
Okay.
like the Warrens before the Warrens, and he was doing an investigation at an apartment building, I think, on Fifth Avenue in New York, and the ghost of a Confederate general appeared in the room, talked through his psychic, and my name is Samuel Gowan of I think it was the Fifth South Carolina Infantry. Why am I here? Why am I not in Abbeville, where I'm born and raised? What's going on? And it turns out that General McCown was in New York seeing his secret lover on the side piece, as it were, and died there in mysterious circumstances. There was a Samuel McCowan. He's from Abbeville. He was a brigadier general in the Confederate Army. Of the war, came back to Abbeville, set himself up as a merchant, made a fair amount of money, got elected to Congress, I think, for a term, served in the state legislature, and died with his wife and like 4 kids by his side in like 1890 in Abbeville, and is buried in Abbeville. And there's no
Okay.
record of General McCown ever going to New York City, much less dying there or having a side piece.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like,
yeah, so bad rap there. Not a good
yeah,
story.
Hans Holzer's one of the people who kind of helped start the modern ghost because a lot of the techniques he used, people use now and everything. But yeah, on that one, it was swinging a miss.
Yeah.
The psychic got it wrong.
Let me go three more if that's okay with
Oh,
you.
no, that's fine. That's fine.
Trapman Street Tales. What's that about?
Those stories all came from the same book. And one thing that I try to do with these, with all four of my ghost books, is I try to gather stories that have not been in print either before or in a very long time. I try to go to the places and verify, yes, that place was there. Yes, the people who were supposed to have owned it lived there. And yeah, it's actually still there. You can still go see it. But there's a book called Doctor to the Dead by John Bennett, who was a doctor in Charleston at the second half of the 19th century after the war. And Trapman Street was the African American hospital in Charleston. And of course, as a white doctor, Dr. Bennett could work there and at the other hospitals in town. And one of the stories, and I don't think it's necessarily it's not site specific,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a story of the Klan have come to scare off or correct bad behavior by a person of color.
Okay.
And one thing they did was they would rig up a hose under their robe or a bucket. They would ask for water because they've been riding a long time and they're thirsty. Well, this person is terrified, and I think if I give you what you want, you'll go away.
Mm.
So I give you a bucket of water, and all of a sudden you down it, and may I have another? And after three or four of those, I'm completely freaked out. Then you say something like, yeah, it's a mighty thirsty ride coming all the way from Appomattox or Chickamauga or get Vicksburg or whatever. And by this point, I'm convinced you're a dead Confederate come back to drag my
Yeah.
soul down. So, yeah, by all means, I'll stop voting. Whatever it is you don't want me to do, I won't do it no more. And that's one of the stories. And it's not one you get a lot anymore now in the WPA guides to the various states that were done back in the New Deal days in the 30s and 40s. And the slave narratives and the ex slaves they interviewed then, that story shows up several times in different places. And I was like, that's one that needs to make sure it gets back in print so it can last.
Right.
So,
Right.
and there are another one or two about the Trapman Street Hospital in the area. So
Interesting.
can't give it all away for
Uh,
free. You got to buy one at some point. So
yeah, that's right. Haunts in Georgetown. This sounds like it's probably not site specific. It's is that also the situation there where there's just stories of the general area there?
as far as Georgetown,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's South Carolina. Like I say, settlement started on the coast. You had Charleston, Beaufort, then Georgetown were the three spots. Charleston and Beaufort were cotton trade, and Georgetown was rice. That was their
Okay.
cash crop. The cool one to me about Georgetown is the wreck of the Harvest Moon, which
Hmm.
was Admiral John Dahlgren's flagship. He was the commander of the section of the blockade in North and South Carolina. And Harvest Moon was his flagship. It was a side wheeler steamboat. Nothing like you would expect, like the USS Arizona or Missouri or one of the real battleships. Now, this was,
Yeah.
but he had a black servant who was a freed person of color who was a servant whose job was to keep the fireplace in his cabin stoked. And the night, during the course of a patrol, the ship hits a mine, which they called a torpedo. It was basically a fixed mine in the harbor
Hmm.
of like 3 barrels of gunpowder tied together, and the ship hit it and it blew up. When the ship exploded, everyone got off the boat except for the servant. And
I see.
now, and the wreck is still in the harbor, and at low tide, you can see it in Georgetown Harbor. The smokestack, the funnel
Interesting.
still sticks up.
Wow.
But fishermen have reported seeing a orange glow coming from the cabin where the servant died. And
Oh,
a
wow.
cool aside about Dahlgren, speaking of National Enquirer version of history, Dahlgren got his start as a designer of naval weaponry. He designed a smoothbore cannon for the Navy, and they did a demonstration on the USS Preston on the Potomac River in 1842. And President John Tyler, like the Treasury Secretary, the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of the Navy are all there. Who's who? I mean, it's not like a $1,000 plate fundraiser nowadays for a politician.
Mm.
Everybody has gone down below decks to have drinks and chat and everything, and they decide we're going to fire off one more shot at midnight to celebrate the new day or something. Well, they go up and someone spoke to President Tyler at the top of the stairs. And just as he turned to have the conversation, the gun exploded.
Mm.
Secretary of State, Secretary of Navy, like 2 senators, 4 or 5 congressmen, and a couple of wealthy people died instantly, like shrapnel to the chest. And Tyler, if you remember, was the first vice president to become president after Harrison died.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have a vice president. So if not for who knows what kind of fix we could have been in 1842, because there was no one else. I mean, who would come after?
Right.
And that's doing then. And then he gives us a ghost story in South Carolina. The place spent 6 months.
Mm.
So there are no ghosts from the Princeton explosion, but there are from the.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
This stuff's interesting. I'll tell you, man. You know, those little details that they're just lost for the most part without it being told like you're doing, you know? I think that's great. The Lucas Bay Light. What is that? Like an orb or something or what?
Yeah, it's like the Marfa lights or the Joplin spook light and some of those, you can chase it with your car and it'll retreat in advance and everything.
Hmm.
The reason it got in the book is supposedly on the site where the light appears, there was a Confederate garrison, like a little outpost set up. And of course, now they have since redesigned the roads because Lucas Bay is near Conway, which is near Myrtle Beach.
Okay.
So they have changed the roads, widened roads, repaved roads, and the light no longer comes out. But that was the saying, it would appear out of the woods, hover over the road, and you would go, and of course you would park your car, and sometimes the light would race towards your car, and sometimes you'd have to chase it down the road and everything else. And
right. It's a good thing you caught that in your book if it's if it's not physically a place anymore. Yeah.
You can still get to the area, but like I say, the quote unquote official location is like under a canal or something now. It's where they've done so much work that it's highly unlike the Somerville light. The terrain has changed so much that even if the light shows up, no one can get to it to see it.
Yeah.
Which happens. I mean, 150 years on, we should be thankful anyway.
Very true. Tally, what's been your favorite story or research or, any that you've looked in for this book? What was your favorite one out of all these?
It's like picking a kid, man.
That's a hard one, I know.
My favorite story is my first encounter with Private Huff at Fort Sumter. Because I met him on a class field trip. And we're down there, we're doing the tour and everything. And I mean, this is like I said, before you were born. And they're pointing out, this is the battlement. This is where the first cannonball hit, blah, blah, blah. And I see a guy in a blue uniform. And on the side profile, I see he's got a brown beard mustache. And he is walking towards the battlement, one of the angles coming off the wall. And it's made out of shell, tabby concrete, brick wall with a little abutment coming off. Well, he's walking along and he's obviously dressed up in costume. So I talk to him and I'm like 10 years old. This is not, 53-year-old me. This is 10-year-old me. So there's about a third as much of me and everything. So I take off like a scalded dog chasing him. And about the time I catch up, he walks into that abutment and vanishes.
Oh, man.
Well, even me at 8, 9 years old, and I mean, I weighed maybe 80 pounds sopping wet.
Mm-hmm.
I bounced off that wall. I didn't go into it. So I scraped my face up, and of course, the teacher loses her mind because I've run away from the group, and I keep babbling about seeing the man in blue. I want to know where the man in blue went. And the park ranger turns white of the ghost, and we have to go to her office, and she pulls out a book and says, "Is this the guy you saw?" And I'm
Wow.
like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Okay." Closes the book, puts it up, and looks at the teacher and says, "There are no ghosts at any national park site." Because who I saw was that Private Daniel Huff, who was in, I think, the original version of the 54th Massachusetts,
Hmm.
not the all black version from Glory, but the original incarnation, who was stationed at the fort, who manned the 13th gun in the 33 gun salute to the flag. One
Yeah.
pull the lanyard, the gun. He
Wow.
was dead.
Yeah.
He's the only person that died at Fort Sumter. After
Mm-hmm.
3 bombardments, he's the only one that died. And they say he shows up, he walks from the flagpole to that abutment, and the abutment is where the medical station was, where the little lean-to against the wall where the doctor had his basically saw, liquor, and straps. I mean, if he breaks something, he's probably going to cut it off. There's not much else they can do.
Yeah.
And he's seen walking from that flagpole to that side of that old office. And I saw him, and then I went back doing research for the book, took the ferry ride out. It's very cool. And of course, today I go back to the fort, he doesn't show up.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
was mad at him. I'm like, really? I paid like $15 for the ferry, like something to get into Fort Sumter, and I'm like, you couldn't even show up, really, dude.
Yeah.
And of course, the ranger gives me the standard line, and I mean, he did give me that look like, you and I both know this is BS, but like, I could tell you more, but they won't let me. And I
Yeah.
was like, dude, really, come on. The research is the Honey Hill account from Jasper County. That was another little minor skirmish about the size of Rivers Bridge. A couple of Sherman's scavengers, the bummers they called them, who would go out and rob them near plantations for supplies,
Yeah.
and into a couple of the same home guards guys. And basically everybody shot one bullet apiece, and then everybody ran off. And
Hmm.
but that site was considered lost for several years, and then it got put on the National Register of Historic Places. Which, despite the address being restricted, I said, okay, if it's on the National Register, it's open enough to the public to be used.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put your house on here so nobody knocks on your bathroom window at 3 in the morning. But a historic site, that's fair game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the address is restricted, of course, because I don't want people going out trying to dig up Civil War bullets and Civil War buttons and atrophying bodies or whatever else. But I found multiple trips to State Archive, State Library, Jasper County Courthouse, Beaufort County Courthouse, but I finally found it.
Yeah.
But I can't tell you exactly where it is. But I mean, but that was one that the research on that one, and I think it may be like 2 paragraphs in the book. That research totaled probably close to a week of real time
Yeah.
because it was just so involved and everything.
Sure.
But I mean, and like I say, I want to at least try to get the facts right. I mean, I may not be remembering them correctly now, but they're
Yes.
right. I mean, I do pride myself on at least, if I say the battle was date X, that place
Right.
Y. And so,
Yeah. Well, I have one question. It's not on my list here of questions, but as we're talking, as a young man, you had that experience. A lot of times when people have an experience like that, they find other experiences throughout their life as well. Would that be the case for you, or was this kind of isolated? Or have you seen things that were odd or strange,
I
apparitions,
have,
anything like that?
I've had a bunch of experience,
Yeah.
but I'm not, I claim no psychic ability. I claim no special skill. Part of it is I go to see what I can see.
Yeah.
I mean, in the back of my mind, I have hopes that I'll see private eye. I have hopes that I will see the light from the wreck of the. I don't expect it. I don't plan on it, but I'm open to having it happen.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not going to a random place that some guy on the internet said, "Hey, there might be something over here."
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to a place where there has been at least one documented sighting by somebody.
You're
And
right.
if I can find multiple sources, more likelihood that I'll get in the car at 3 a.m. and go drive somewhere to go see something stupid.
Sure.
But you have to be willing to go, and you have to be willing to go with people that you trust, because the odds are really good. Me and you could go to the same site 4 weekends in a row. First week, both get nothing. Next weekend, I see it, you hear it. The next weekend, you get touched. I smell something like perfume or whatever. Next time we go, we both see the same thing. And the fifth weekend we go, I have to know that you are not, doing shrooms in the car on the way down, that you're reasonably trustworthy, that you're not prone to just sit here and lie and just rant and rave about stuff.
Yeah, there's got to be some trust.
Can you work a real camera? Can you work a paper and pencil? And can you work a digital recorder?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if I'm going to get evidence, that's what I'm not going to, I don't have an EMF meter. I don't have a K2, paper, pencil, and a real camera. And a digital recorder. That's my ghost hunting kit. I mean, besides, real boots, a face mask for when I have to go inside, like an abandoned industrial site, just have like asbestos and rat poop and everything else. I mean, I'm not taking, $5 million worth of gear. I'm taking, a $1.50 notebook and pen that I've had for 5 years. I mean, but I mean, I have to know that you're somebody that I can go with, and you won't stab me in the throat in the middle of nowhere at 3 a.m. either. I mean, because I mean, there are people who go off on these little ghost hunting expedition things and don't know who they're going with from out of town.
Yeah.
And then you get people who burn down historic sites because they saw a ghost in a window. That they just the last remaining, I don't know, Confederate iron. Somebody panicked because the bat flew in front of the street light and they thought it was the horseman of the apocalypse. I mean, it's just. I mean, so I need to make sure that you're somebody that's worth hanging out with. And I do that because, I mean, we've met before, we've hung out in other contexts, and you're interested. You don't seem to be crazy, so at least I can trust you that far. So.
Right. Well, Tally, this has been great. I've really enjoyed talking about this, going through this subject, and hearing some of the details that you have in your book. This is fascinating. I'm curious, is there anything that you would like to share that maybe my questions didn't pull in that direction? Or do you think we've covered enough to whet people's appetite so they can say, yeah, I want to go pick that book up, get excited for this Halloween month?
I think we gave them enough of a tease that they should be interested.
Yeah.
But like I say, one thing that I try to do with my stuff is I try to go to all the sites. Now, it may not be at dark midnight, at the night of the full moon and all this stuff, but I will go to a site and see what happened. I would see what the lay of the land is. Because if you grab this book and say, I want to go find the railroad trestle in Jedburgh where the ghost train crosses, and hear the Confederates hooping and hollering, well, I'll give you an idea where that is. So you're not going to wind up in the wrong side of the state and stuff. And like I said, sites are accessible. I have at least been once, if at all possible. And I may or may, and I'm honest, I'll say, I went and nothing happened. It was probably a lie. But when I went, nothing happened. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and promise you, if you do what I did, you'll see a ghost. These things don't perform on command. I mean, sometimes you get a ghost, some luck of the draw. I mean, really, and that's one thing a lot of people don't realize. And one thing that I tell folks too, you don't have to do the midnight ghost hunt thing, because most people are out and about from like 8 to 8. I mean, unless it's a weekend that I'm doing something, personal fun, I'm in bed at midnight.
Right.
I'm old and tired and work for a living. I'm not going to be up at 12:30 at night wandering around.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. You'll probably have more experiences like 6 to 9 in the morning or 6 to 9 at night. If you can get to a place
Right.
that's quiet enough and everything. So, I mean, so if you want to ghost hunt with kids, take the ferry ride to Fort Sumter. You may get lucky. Do the self-guided tour at the State House in South Carolina. Look for the stars where the Union Cannon hit the building.
Right.
And if you're a lady, you may get pinched on the butt by a Revolutionary War veteran ghost. I mean, you just kind of have to do your stuff and see. And there are places in the book that aren't necessarily civil. They have a Civil War tie, but the ghost story isn't Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
And they're Revolutionary ghosts on the side. Somewhere like Charleston, you'll have that a lot, where it's like the place has been here since 1680. There are going to be more than
Sure.
one ghost in it. I mean, just nature of the
Yeah,
beast.
yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Tally, what's next for you? Like, are you working on any project? I think you mentioned you were working on another book, but what's future projects for you?
Well, I have a book coming out hopefully this fall from Gold Dust Publishing called Lies I Tell My Friends.
Hmm.
And that is basically a written version of the ghost storytelling events that I do at like fandom conventions and libraries and schools.
Okay.
If you can't get across the country to see me do one of those in the flesh, you can buy that book. And like if you watch this, you've heard my voice, you'll read the entire book in my voice, and I'm horribly sorry about that. No refunds. Um,
Right.
so I've got that coming up. I've got several fandom cons I'm doing. I'm doing StaCon up in Roanoke, Virginia. That'll be first of the year. Con is later that winter up in Raleigh. Then I have Con Carolinas over in Charlotte. That one's around Memorial Day weekend. So those are the events that
Perfect.
I'm typically always at. And shout to me on Facebook, via email, whatever. I'll come do lives about go to the library for money too. I'm easy.
So,
I'm a
what's
cheap
the
date.
website
So,
again? Yeah, there you
huh?
go. I like that. I said I like that. What's your website again for people?
It's about as long as my arm. So let me search the memory banks here.
Well, and Tally, if you want to send it to me right after this, just email it
I've
to me.
got it. I've got it. It is one of those that's about 3 miles long. So, but
Yeah,
it's
send it to me, and I'll make sure it's on
okay.
the
Okay.
notes of the
Yeah, I'll
site.
do that.
Yeah,
That'll probably be easier for everybody. Well, you've got it because that's how you hollered at me about doing the show.
yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
We can just use the
and
same one.
yeah,
Gotcha. Oh yeah, that's the one with the wicks at the end. That one.
yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah. The
is
week.
long.
Yeah,
When I
it
first
is.
got that, I was like, "Is that real?" Yeah. Cool.
Yeah,
I will make sure I add that.
that is very much a work in progress.
Yeah.
I changed jobs back this time last year or so. Some of this stuff that needs to be fixed has not quite gotten fixed yet because
Yeah.
for some reason, real life keeps wanting to nose in on my fun. I don't understand it.
Hmm. It does that, doesn't it?
It
It's not
does.
right. Tally, I want to
Absolutely.
thank you so much for being with us and sharing this, and especially this very interesting topic in your research and work in your book. I think that's great. And I want to also thank all the listeners for joining us today in this really cool information right here around Halloween, where that you can get excited and interested. And hey, pick up this book, and actually, if you're in the area of South Carolina, hey, now you can go out and check some of these places out, see what you find. That will be amazing. And other than that, I just want to tell everybody, if you enjoy these kinds of topics and you want to just get more of this, tell somebody and do us a favor and subscribe. Hit the like button. It helps an episode, or it helps our episode with the algorithms and things like that. But other than that, I want to say have a spooky Halloween month, everybody. And remember, there's a lot of strange and unexpected in our reality. So always keep your eyes, ears, and minds open. And until next time, stay safe.
Have a good night, y'all.
Thank you for listening to High Strangeness. This was a glance at some of the strange that exists in our reality.